So in this video today, I'm just going to go over a general overview of one of Ohio's various consumer protection laws, and this is called the Consumer Sales Practices Act, and it's set forth in Chapter 1345 of the Ohio Revised Code. And this is probably one of the most wide-ranging consumer protection laws that is meant to benefit consumers who have been wronged by a business. And what it essentially does is it protects consumers from unfair, deceptive, and unconscionable acts in sales practices that are primarily for the purpose of personal, family, or household use. So it's really meant to protect sort of the small guy, the family, the individuals from these businesses that may take advantage of them. And the first thing you need to know is, well, what is a consumer transaction? And basically, a consumer transaction for the purposes of the statute is any sale, lease, assignment, award, or other transfer of goods and services, again, that are primarily personal, household, or family. And a few examples: the sale of both new and used vehicles. If a retail store is advertising a sale, that's considered a consumer transaction. Companies selling their goods online, a home improvement contractor soliciting business, telemarketing, credit repair services, those are all considered consumer transactions. And it's more wide-ranging than that. That's just a few examples. There are some exceptions. I'm not going to get into that today, but it's a pretty broad what can be considered a consumer transaction. So what does the statute require of these sellers or suppliers that are covered by the statute? Well, it requires them to do a few things and not misrepresent other things. Seller has to accurately reflect the nature of their products and goods. They have to honor warranties and guarantees. Can't misrepresent the nature of the business or the products. A seller can't sell a used item as new. A seller can't take advantage of someone's illiteracy or their disability or just their inability to understand the nature of a transaction. The seller can't misrepresent the quantity of goods that would be involved in a transaction. Can't misrepresent any sponsorship or affiliations, and can't do a bait and switch. And when it comes to exclusions or limitations in a certain transaction, those need to be set forth in the ads. So what does this mean for a consumer when a seller or a supplier might violate the statute? Well, there are some specific remedies for a consumer, and probably the most important one for the consumer would be the ability to sue the seller or the supplier directly. And there are a few remedies available, even if we're only talking about a few $100s. The first remedy would be getting actual damages plus an amount up to $5,000. So there's sort of this additional remedy on top of what your actual damages are, and it's sort of also meant to punish these sellers, suppliers for violating the law, and to try and hopefully prevent them from doing it in the future. If your case involves a situation where either the Attorney General or a court has deemed the specific act involved to be unfair or deceptive or unconscionable, there are some additional remedies. You can get 3 times your actual damages plus the amount up to $5,000. So there's a pretty good incentive there. In those circumstances, you can also cancel the transaction. And lastly, attorney's fees might be available if the seller knowingly engaged in the act or practice. So there's an incentive for a consumer to pursue this case, even if we're only talking about a couple $100s. There's some additional statutory damages that may make it worthwhile, and there's incentive for attorneys to take on these cases because there are situations where their attorney's fees could get paid, even when on its face, the case may not look like it's worth that much. So that's just a basic overview of the Consumer Sales Practices Act, one of the many laws Ohio has to protect consumers.